Hello, thank you. I brought my nurse's hat today. And this is, you probably know him as Bob the Builder, but this is Roberto el Constructor for today. Okay. So we'll put Bob there. We'll return to Bob in a little bit, or Roberto. Okay, so you probably know that construction is an extremely dangerous occupation for anyone, but it's more dangerous for Latinos or Hispanics. The Department of Labor, OSHA, refers to them as Hispanics. From my research here in Southern Nevada, the preferred term is Latino, so I may use them interchangeably. And this map is an indication of the prevalence of Latino workforce from Texas to California. It's above 30%. So for some reason, Utah is not in that swath. I don't know why. But when I moved here in 2006, people were falling or dying in the city center projects about one every 6 weeks. There was a $32 billion building boom then, and in 18 months, 12 workers had died. I pulled out 2 cases that occurred shortly after I got here. One, Isidro Paleo, he was driving what's called a Georgia buggy, which is like a bobcat with a bathtub on it. And he put it into gear forward, but what he didn't know is that the equipment was broken. Another worker had put it in forward and found it went into reverse. So that worker moved it to another floor of the Trump International, and when Isidro hit forward, it went into reverse in high speed into an elevator shaft covered by a sheet of plywood. And Isidro and the plywood went down the shaft, but the Georgia buggy stayed there. He fell 70 feet. Of course, he died. But does anyone know how long it takes to fall 70 feet? Someone take a guess. What? 1 second. Gravity is almost as strong as and fast as electricity. So 1 Mississippi, remember when we used to count that? That's how long it took Isidro to hit the ground. 2 workers, Angel Hernandez and Bobby Lee Tohani, were carpenters walking along in the Badara Tower when a crane happened to drop 7,300 pounds of concrete forms on them. Now, would a course in how to work safely have helped them? No. Okay. So this also is a little comic strip there of what happens when you cover up holes with plywood, and we'll return to that. Now, I'm not sure that this will work, but this is a huge problem. Latinos die at a much greater rate, 40% higher than other workers. Most of the Latinos, almost 3/4 killed on the job, have been foreign-born. And of the falls, which account for the lion's share of death, 80% of those who fall to their death are foreign-born. And once they're injured, their injuries are likely to be more serious. So we'll see whether this has any sound. I didn't try it out here. Do we know if we have sound?
Sounded like it.
No. Okay. Sound mute. Okay, well, unmute. Okay. It doesn't matter. He's speaking in Spanish, and there are subtitles. So here's just sort of an overview of a fall, and here's a worker explaining. This is the type of work environment they're in. So the scaffold collapsed, high-rise under construction, a lot of screaming. Okay, so let's see if I can get back to my slides. Let's see. I need some help here. Disparities program. Okay. Where did my slides go? Okay.
Go to this one.
Go to that one. Okay, there. Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay. So that little clip, it shows what are the types of problems. Now, when I first came here, I looked at some of the statistics. Because I can't find out the actual number of Latino workers in the workforce, I really can't compute incidence rates, but I could look at the proportions of injuries. So these are the serious injuries. These require more than first aid or result in lost time, and they're notoriously underreported. And in many of these accidents, they don't report the ethnicity or race. But if you look, in 2003, 45% of the accidents occurred to Latinos, 42%, 39, 51. So this is higher than the 30% proportion in the workforce. Now, I refreshed this the other day, and the red bars indicate Latino or Hispanic injuries, and again, except for 2011, the disparity persisted. And I have the raw data down here in table form if anyone wants on the break to come look at it. So besides being injured and killed, they have a much greater chance of having a permanent impairment. They have 15 times longer disability, and they have a much decreased likelihood of receiving workers' compensation. Now remember, the name of that is workers' compensation, not employers' compensation. But here in Nevada, we've twisted things around. So again, falls, the most common accident. The speed or the height of the fall is not injurious. It's how fast you hit something that doesn't move, like concrete. So here's Lois Lane, and we all expect Superman to come swooping in and grabbing her, but if he comes swooping in and just stops her like this, she's gonna flatten out like a pancake. But they always show that in the cartoons, that he sweeps away. He'd actually have to lower her down to slow her fall. So I have to skip a little bit. So we both agree that if a Latino and a non-Hispanic white fall, they'll have the same result. So that's not where the disparity is. The disparity is in the risk of fall. So what makes Roberto more likely to fall? So that's the kind of thing we're going to look at here. Okay, so here we have some of the factors that have been in the literature and some that I determined from my own research here. There's something called a danger differential, where a lot of supervisors know that Latinos will take some risks that a non-Hispanic white person may not, for numerous reasons. They're not used to speaking up and questioning authority. They're very fearful of losing their jobs. So on a windy day, when a non-Hispanic white might refuse to go out on a beam because fear of being blown off, a Latino person might do that. And since the supervisors are under time pressure, they may put someone at risk. They're fearful about their immigration status. Again, I mentioned there's some cultural issues. They have no understanding of or access to the workers' comp system, particularly here in Nevada. They don't understand the US healthcare system. They have a lot of communication and language problems, low literacy even in their own countries, and very low health literacy. So what are the solutions? Well, we need to protect vulnerable populations, and they need to be upstream interventions. I put this case here so that you could see it's not a Latino person, but this was a steel worker, and He was walking along, I've forgotten which building he was in. He stepped in a hole and fell to his death. And when OSHA met with SME steel contractors, SME was able to say that Mr. Billingsley was entirely at fault for his injuries because he fell through the hole, even though the hole was not guarded and there was no safety system underneath it. And OSHA agreed and took away all the fines. So much for that. So there's 3 ways we have to intervene. We have to intervene aimed at the employers. The employers have to be held responsible for providing a safe and healthful workforce. That is in the OSH Act. We have very poor enforcement of that here in Las Vegas. I just looked up Perini Construction. It's a $5.1 billion international company, and their stock has been nothing but on a rocket ship since they've been out here. And you know, they view these little fines as sort of mosquitoes, and you can usually bargain them away. There's a way of bargaining through Nevada OSHA. But there is a way of trying to prevent injuries before they happen called prevention through design. And I've been working a little bit with the construction management program in civil engineering about trying to get this more in practice. So I just read in the paper they're going to put 5,000 new homes in North Las Vegas, a new housing development. And so those will be 5,000 roofs that will be built at elevation. You can die from a fall of 10 feet. I think Kenny Gwynn fell off his roof, right? And broke his neck. So if you build all those roofs on the ground and use a crane to hoist them, you've just cut the risk. So there's many ways of doing that to reduce the risk, the exposure to the worker. Employers must be sanctioned for hiring undocumented workers because the foreign-born are at great risk. I don't think it's fair to hire someone in order to wind up killing them. So, and the supervisor training is needed in cultural competence. They need to understand that the Latino worker is not going to speak up at the same rate that an American worker will be, and they need to be encouraged to bring up their questions. So we have a state plan, OSHA, it's not federal here in Nevada. Half the states are state plans. Of course, Nevada is going to do its own. The U.S. Department of Labor called it incompetent and ineffective. And so after it got rebuked, the state legislature said, well, we have to do something about this. I know, we'll pass a law that makes the worker responsible for paying out of their own pocket to take a course in safety in order to be given a card. So it costs the legislature nothing, costs employers nothing. And so now these poor workers have to go take courses and have a card. We offered some of these courses through this College of Engineering, and I still get calls Saturday morning saying, I lost my card and they won't hire me. Can I have a card this morning? I'm like, no, I cannot have the cards. And we need to revise the workers' compensation procedures. Okay, so the Nevada law states that it's extended to those aliens and minors, whether lawfully or unlawfully employed. But how does an alien file a claim without a Social Security number? So I've copied some of their forms here. So Social Security number is needed to report an accident and to report the initial treatment. So I met with the people in workers' comp here in Southern Nevada, and I said, well, these people who are undocumented don't have Social Security numbers. And they basically said that was not their problem, that their system depends on having a valid Social Security number. So although the law says they can get comp, the system is set up so that they can't get comp. So that has to change. I just told people to call workers' comp because they're allowed coverage. Some of the workers told me that their employers would say, you know, here's the $1,000, go back to Mexico, or if you report this, I'm turning you into immigration. So there's a lot of pressure on them not to report. We need a worker center in Southern Nevada. These are places where immigrant workers can gather and learn about social justice, workers' comp, get English as a second language. I think there was one in Reno, but the fellow who ran it had a heart attack and then it never ran again. He died, actually. The workers and the family both need education about their rights under OSHA and workers' comp because they don't understand it. They don't understand the U.S. healthcare system. They would sometimes seek treatment from folk healers rather than the mainstream education. And caregivers, we need to be more culturally sensitive, and we need to be able to correctly identify the cause of injury. I have read studies that have looked at workers' comp records, emergency room records, OSHA logs, and found that about 40% of on-the-job injuries are paid for by other insurance programs. So Medicaid, Medicare, private insurance, or the individual themselves. 40%, that's nearly half the cases of people who are injured on the job do not get coverage under workers' comp for various reasons. And we as providers are not doing them any favors because in addition to getting coverage treatment, they also are entitled to wage replacement. So unless we really question them and find out whether this is indeed a work-related injury and help them get workers' comp, we're not doing them any favors. And because they take 15 times longer to recover, case management is extremely important. So that's all I have on that. Thank you. I'll come around and get my